My goodness gracious me. Hold on, where's the gain at? The gain is purposefully low where it should be. Undo this clear, get this fucking shit up. Let's not be fucking around here. Now, I hope Sergeant doesn't show expect more wrestling Sporcle quizzes, because I do have a plan for today's stream that's not that, even though I said maybe it would be that yesterday. Oh, I'm spoiling it. I'm an idiot. Pretend you didn't see that. No, anyway. Shabes, or on the big main channel over here, was commenting. He's been roaring, something. We got to react to his video. That's the point, chat. And that's going to be today's stream, I think, because this goddamn video... God, I had a whole bit planned out where I was going to say, you know, in life, we live to give the people what they want. And then I was going to go into it, but, you know, I had a scripted line and everything. Fell through. But that's what we're going to be doing. But we'll bullshit a little bit before then. I think I was going to look something else up, but I can't remember what the fuck that was. Oh my god, I love great Fleabag clips, because we're signed into the VODs channel for whatever reason right now. You love it. Secondary ENT, we just uploaded the great Last of Us Part 2 thingy reaction that we recorded yesterday on stream. We got the great Heath in chat. Heath, have you seen this video before? You've seen the type that may have, but, you know, I could be wrong. But Heath's also in his Miller era where he's like, I don't watch shitty YouTube videos anymore. I just watch 15 anime a day. But yes, we got a great 12 views on this one. You know, when they're used to the great Elite RE thumbnails and you just give them another screenshot like it's 4 years ago, the people don't like it. But anyway, which one? The newest one, the dub versus sub one. Any tweets? Didn't think so. We can get rid of that. These are all the videos I'm trying to make Elite RE watch. That's the Gunbuster OP. This is a thing that we got to pause again because I do this every stream. You know, either the laptop gets shut off or everything has to refresh and stuff. Oh my god, I was going to throw Word out the fucking window. Get it? Because it's on Windows. Earlier today because it kept crashing on me. I was pissed. Newest Lamau, I did too. I assume we're talking about the Shaves video right now. Now, it's been 4 months, so everybody's ready to be refreshed. Because, chat, I woke up this morning, and then I decided I was probably going to do this. Now, I didn't decide as soon as I woke up. You know, I got other things to do, like brush teeth, figure out what you're going to have for breakfast. You're very hungry, you know. You got to check, I don't know, Discord. You got to do all these very important various things. I played, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters Coliseum for a whole long-ass time, too. I did nothing. I decided not to watch the AFL Grand Final, because who really gives a fuck? And it was a blowout score anyway. Who cares? And then I decided that maybe we would do this. And I was like, so where am I at with these fucking Shabes uploads? I remember I watched the Better Berserk. I was in New Zealand for that one. You know, he's talking about the Great Gungrave. I put it on the list. I still haven't watched it, though. Then we've got Tears of the Kingdom. We Hate Zelda. Boo. But this video was pretty good. These were all last year's uploads, including, I think, the last of the Naruto videos. The great Naruto videos we like a lot. This great Glimpse of Us AMV from Brigadoon or whatever that we love a lot. So I was like, oh, I have these 4 videos to watch. So let's watch these today so we can get to this one and we can react to it on stream. I watched this encyclopedia one as I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters Coliseum. There's not too much visual information, and it's last year's video, so I don't even have to buy, what do you call it? On principle, I don't have to, like, be looking at it every second like I pretend I do with all the videos I put on the list. But anyway, we got through it. It was good. I liked it a lot. It was just like a kind of a tearing apart of this video while saying that it's, you know, worthwhile and stuff, and that the people who make this, their other books are much better, and going through some little thingies and how they went about it, and an interview that didn't make that lady seem very smart. Made her seem very dumb, in fact. The guy seemed smart, but, you know, they were a bit jaded, like every creative, whenever, like, somebody is, like, making fun of your thing, and they started whipping out the old, I don't think they said, you're obsessed with me, but that's a classic YouTuber line, but, like, write your own book, pussy, fuck off. And, you know, people keep whining and complaining, and look at all the work we did in a million words or something they keep saying, because it is a big, thick book, but anyway, that was pretty good. So I thought that was an entertaining video nonetheless. Then I realized I had actually seen both of these videos, and they are already on the playlist. Now, is there anything here? Anything new here? No, I don't think so. Also, I was looking up. Oh no, it was one of the anime mentioned here was like an Ava clone. Well, we're not supposed to call things Ava clones. It's a point Shade makes in the video. About like these kids on a thingy that they have to take control of, and then I just look it up because anything Ava clone related, I'm like, oh my god, I should watch this because we love the great Evangelion here. And I tabbed over and I looked it up, and I was like, because what you do is you get the mal up, but you put that in the second window, and then you get a YouTube video just with some footage up, because you can always tell if you want to watch an anime from the footage, because it looks pretty if it's before like 2007 or something. Then all anime looks like shit, chat. What's new is bad and what's old is good. And the first video I clicked on that I thought was just some footage of this show was a Kraftsdorf video on it from like 8 years ago, which was really funny. And I was like, oh, Kraftsdorf watched this anime nobody's heard of. And he made a review of it. I can't remember the fucking name. Because I was like, oh, if I ever want to see it, I'll just go on the great Kraftsdorf. We'll sorting by old, and we'll you don't sort by old, you got tabs anymore. It was 8 years ago. This one is third video, Infinite Reverse, whatever it's called. I only watched the first 3 minutes because then it started getting into spoilers, and Kraftsdorf, you kind of got to see the thing to be able to follow what the fuck this idiot's talking about half the time. He's a wordy bastard, and he's always got a million things to say, and he's going to say them too quickly. But so that was a funny little anecdote. But anyway, we like this video a lot. For whatever reason, I guess I assumed this was like an unscripted video, and that's why I didn't watch it before the end of last year to put it on the playlist. But I don't know why I thought that. And then I watched this AMV again. This AMV is like really great. I think if I knew anything about the actual shows, this would be like a video of the year contender easily. Now I had watched this earlier in the year, probably when it came out, I'm assuming, because it came out in like January. I had only given it a good, just like this one. This one I don't really care about because I don't really like the sound of System of a Down. It's like a type of weird emo-y rock that I don't really like. But this one has a what's his fucking name? Rapper dude. Little Yachty. Yeah, it's his song, but it's like the cool songs, like the prog rock songs
show up in multiple series other than their own.
And so I must have watched this earlier in the year, then somehow later in the year, I was reintroduced to this song, and it sounded vaguely familiar, and I couldn't figure out from where. But there's no way I've ever heard this song. And then I added it to playlist because I really liked this song and listened to it for a little bit. And then to come back and realize it was here was like crazy. And I was like, oh, this is where it's from. This is where I had heard it the first time. And now that I like the song, obviously the AMV is a million times cooler or intriguing. But also it's like a mix AMV / like, I don't know if it's a video essay, just like tribute. Well, yeah, maybe it's a tribute. It's really good. I think if you had invested in the guy or the show, and now I've got the music down, but this would be incredible. Like the Gunbuster AMV that I really like, which I'm pretty sure was like a commission that he did. That's like my favorite. It's the best video I've ever seen in my life. Besides that other Shaves one, that's the best video I've ever seen in my life. The Lupin one. And that doesn't have any of the narration or intro or like why you should care stuff. It's literally just the AMV.
You might recognize his character designs from
doing everything,
5555.
and the music's already started, so it makes the narration even cooler and stuff.
Eyes,
it's just
the heroic men with
incredible,
chiseled jaws,
and it's like
or the bespectacled self-inserts with toothy grins.
It's very important. You're learning about anime history. And, oh my god, this lady looks so cool.
Yet also
so does this one.
Human characters set against this
we don't
cold,
like boys, get them out of
technology, cramped
it's
with
just
buttons.
Like the coolest thing ever, and then eventually it breaks down just into an AMV.
Sometimes you'll
well, not really. In certain parts of it, and the visuals just look really cool. So you're like, this is the greatest. This is the greatest video of all time. Forgotten I had seen that, but they were really good. Anyway, let me catch up on chat before we actually get into the fucking thing, after I'm just recounting to you my day. Why aren't you watching the grand final? First of all, Miller, it's over, you fake sports fan. Also, it's AFL, who cares? Also, I don't like the Brisbane Lions. Also, maybe I would have if I would actually remembered it was today, but then by the time I realized it had already started, and if I don't start a sports game, especially at the start, it's like, oh, who cares? And then I came out to check the score every like 10 or 15 minutes, and I was like, well, it's like 30-1. This is going to be a very exciting game to watch. So if it was close, I probably would have watched the last quarter. But anyway, not a good stream video. Well, the people demand it, Miller. Shabes himself. Do I have to bring the evidence up? So what am I supposed to do? Ignore the young man? I'm addicted to video games. Zelda sucks, Miller. Get over it. 9 out of 10. Not even a 10. Sydney Dogs. I think the Sydney team must have beat Heath's team on the way to the finals in the prelim or something, so he's glad they lost. And I want to play UFO 52. Now, what the fuck is UFO 50? Is it UFO 52? UFO 50. Video game? Looks like some sort of old video game. Is it going to play gameplay? Hold on. Or do we have to click on the video?
UFO 50 consuming all of my spare time lately.
Is it just like a collection of 50 games?
Standout titles. It's only been out for less than a week, so I haven't been able to really get deep into all of them.
It looks good.
These are the games that immediately grabbed my attention and made me want to keep playing. There are a handful of others that I also think are pretty interesting, and who knows, maybe they'll move up in the ranks after I've beaten them. So for those of you who have been playing the game, you can see how my list lines up with yours, and if you haven't jumped in yet, maybe
is it all one game, or is it... Oh no, it is a bunch. It's like
video
a game
will convince you to
collection.
do so. In no particular order, here are my favorite games from UFO 50. First up,
Well, this looks pretty cool. I haven't seen it though. How come Kinda Funny didn't tell me about this? This is embarrassing. What are they doing? Oh my god, it's like a point-and-click adventure game that I watched a bunch of videos about one time. Or I think they just call them adventure games, right? Anyway. Miller's now linking a video trying to get us off topic. I bet it's Channel Awesome or something lame. Excessive. Oh my god, it was pre-muted. This is great. Excessive platformers, the new subgenre. Well, this is actually a video. We can add this to the playlist. If it's a... Miller's giving us a video. What is this? 2015? Oh my god, I got 2... Oh my god, I'm not logged in to add it to the playlist. Also, why do I have 2 Discord messages? That's pissing me off, frankly. I knew about this before the video, by the way. I'm not a normie. Oh, that was a donkey video, and that's why Miller knows what it is. That's embarrassing. I haven't seen a video game donkey video probably all year, so we'll have to catch up on those eventually. We're getting to the back end of this year. We gotta figure this shit out. Now, hold on, I'm checking Discord. Minty, what an annoying prick. You know how these streams are, Carl? Oh. Okay, never mind. I thought he was talking about my stream. He's not. Stupid Minty, you know? What are we supposed to do about him? Hold on, let me get back my Twitch chat up on my goddamn phone. Oh my god, I got another advertisement, but I can see chat. So anyway, I watched like the first 20 seconds, because I was like... Is this going to be a good stream video? I don't know. I guess to preface a bunch of assumptions I'm going to make. I have never seen Nadia. I know a vague amount of it, I guess. Nadia's a girl. She's like a place she's searching through, and there's like weird creatures and stuff, and that little cat thing, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know anything about the dub or sub. Obviously, usually I'm clowning on dubs and calling you a loser if you watch them, but that's usually just funny talk. Of course, we love the great Black Lagoon dub, the Cowboy Bebop dub, you know, all the generic ones, the Barkano dub, the Death Note dub, because that's what I watched first. We particularly hate the Attack on Titan dub, that one's terrible. We like the My Hero Academia dub, because that's what I watched first. We like the Steins Gate dub, now that's a controversial one, because that's what I watched first. And then... anything else, if you like the dub, you're a loser. Especially if it's a new show. You can't be doing that. We made fun of that Chainsaw Man clip on Twitter that one time. That was pretty great. Elite Ari got very mad at that. Elite Ari and Jockey Bacon both keep telling me that the Vinland Saga one is bad because they didn't do accents or whatever. Who cares about all that? The Vinland Saga anime's bad. Lamau? Now... Also... this is another one that Shapes did a bunch of streams for, I assuming going through and deciding which line was better in each version. There's obviously... Now, I'm going to assume most of my initial obvious, like, undercuttings of the premise are going to be incorporated into the video somehow. So I'm assuming that, like... Because obviously, in totality, just the percentage of better lines is probably not a very good way to determine which is better. There's obviously an inherent subjectivity to which one you think is better. There's also, I'm pretty sure Shaves doesn't speak Japanese, so there's also a missing of the nuances of a performance between languages, but I'm assuming all these will be taken care of. I'm assuming maybe this video was born out of Shabes liking the dub for Nadia, but everybody constantly shitting on it or something, and maybe we're pushing back against that sort of narrative. And probably what this video is going to be attacking the generic things people say or the bad points people bring up regarding the sub versus dub debate, or when they're like, don't watch the dub, that's for pussies, like I'm always doing, so we'll see. Jesus Christ, Kyle. Nausicaa, not Nadia. Did I say Nadia a bunch of times? True, that's what we should be doing. We love Nadia the Blue Water here. We should be watching a video on that instead. Why are you watching this? Surely Shaves would want you to watch the movie before this video. Well, maybe, Miller, you should kill yourself, bitch. How about that? Now, Kaze no Tani no Nausicaa. Oh my god, that must mean Valley of the Wind. Wait, Kaze means wind, I know that. Kaze ni Nore. That's a wrestling thing. Also an anime opening. But anyway.
I went through this entire movie comparing the Japanese audio to the English audio.
Oh my god, that's like the Disney thing. Remember when Disney had all the Ghibli movies or something and everybody was mad at their dubs maybe? Also, I watched, because the only two Ghibli movies I've seen are Laputa and Grave of the Fireflies, because I tried to watch them all in order, not realizing that Nausicaa came first when I was like 16 or something. And I got 2 in. Grave of the Fireflies really took it out of me, guys. But I remember watching... I don't remember if I watched Laputa in the dub or sub first. I think I've seen it in both, because I have seen it like 2 or 3 times. That's a good movie. But the dub has like a New Zealand girl as like the lead, which was always interesting. But, you know, what do we know about New Zealand? Yuck.
Audio.
By the toxic jungle.
This is as far as I got when I was previewing it, you know? Dub sounded a little interesting. Didn't sound too dubby yet.
Single line. To prove with math that the dub is better than the original Japanese. Yes. There were 3 factors.
Is there more than one Japanese dub of Nausicaa, maybe? Or are we just rejecting the word sub? Well, yeah, because you're comparing the audio, I guess.
To consider. The script with multiple translations and the raw Japanese, the performances of the voice actors, and even the technical sound quality of the audio itself. I was able to prove that the dub was almost twice as good.
Because don't people complain about old anime, I'm just going to call them subs, having bad audio engineering? Like, I know people complain about the original Dragon Ball a lot, which is funny.
By the numbers, but because there was over 700 lines of dialogue, it took me 30 hours of streaming to argue. So this video is the result. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is my favorite anime film, which is why I chose
there you go.
it as my subject. I've seen...
What's my favorite anime film, chat? Oh, we love Evangelion. There's like 5 of them, brother. Besides that, are there any good anime movies, chat? Laputa, we were just saying. What else have I even seen? The great Pokemon movies, except I don't like the first one. But I really like the second one, and the rest of them I haven't watched in forever, so I have no idea. But I remember liking them a lot. Have I really seen no anime movies? Oh, we watched 1001 Nights, another Shaves recommendation. That one was pretty epic. Oh, I watched Perfect Blue. Thought it was mid. Take that, Elite RE. I haven't watched that Trixie video yet either. Japanese Dragon Ball audio isn't bad. It's just not good. It just got bad later from decay, and fans had to get the broadcast audio. Nah, it was probably bad. I don't believe Miller. I can't think of any other anime movies I've watched. Literally none. Anyway, moving on.
I've seen this movie over 40 times since I was 10, almost every time with the 2005 English dub by Buena Vista. So the first time I saw it in the original Japanese was when it released in theaters, and I thought it was worse. But why? Surely I'm just too attached to the audio.
Bias and stuff, I said this already. The Trixie video is kind of funny. She says she's literally the main character. Well, that's kind of what she's always done. She likes her.
Was used to. I'm just biased, that's all. I will always have my preferences. This project that's trying to prove it quantitatively is still my own subjective opinion. It's just a lot more nuanced and refined because I combed through all of it and not just the parts that matter most to me. Feel free.
Now, this is an interesting thing because there are some Shabesisms that I've picked up over the years, years of watching the videos. He does often allude to subjective opinions having different weights. I think actually this came up, maybe, I'm remembering, because more recently I watched the Nate episode of Pissed Pirates. Cover your ears, Millie, you don't want no spoilers. No, I'm not going to spoil anything. But just, they were arguing with that. So I don't know if that came up there or why it's fresh in my mind, or maybe it was in the encyclopedia video and I've already forgotten. Yeah, these different weighings of subjective opinions of, like, it seems Shabes thinks that, like, there are more informed subjective opinions that make them more valuable or more nuanced, I guess. I guess I would agree with that. I was bringing this up to disagree with it. But if you're just describing it as more nuanced without, like, charging that word with, like, moral weight or positivity, I guess that's true, because you could talk about it in a more nuanced sense to the details, without necessarily saying that that's more valuable. Because obviously my position generally is that, like, nobody's opinion about any of this can have any value, really. Like, the person that's not seen it at all, his opinion is valued equally as much as somebody that's seen it a million times and knows every little detail, because they both have equally zero value. Now, you can talk about different things for, like, value to the conversation, but even then, those are obviously subjective parameters you set up in different, like, classes or whatever. But anyway.
Free to disagree just because a single line or a single character is better in Japanese. I sure have takes like that for other anime. But no, the main reason at the time why I thought that Japanese was worse was just because the subs aren't good. Aren't. As in the present tense. The current official Nausicaa subs you'd see in theaters or on the present tense. The current official Nausicaa subs you'd see in theaters or on the discs or on streaming, they're very bare bones and mediocre. They're not wholly wrong exactly, but it feels like someone had a gun to their head as they were translating to make sure they injected no feeling whatsoever. Or I guess what the fans would call. The translation by Linda Hoagland with Judith Ali, Nao Amisaki, and
not Amanda and Sabrina, our favorites.
Stephen Alpert. Oh my gosh, 4 people signed off on this?
Wait, what does it say? It's been a year and a half. Father will be glad.
On this? On this? Look, I don't want to prove arguments to you by showing off a few cherry-picked examples. That's one of the reasons I went line by line. It's a 2-hour movie, and the script is over 5,000 words. It's not going to be blanketly good or bad. But you're not going to believe me
5,000 words seems so little.
Without even a little bit of evidence. I just find it disingenuous to make such generalized statements of quality. But we all do it anyway, don't we? Heck, we're so lazy we even believe other people's generalized judgments without making our own. Warriors of the Wind is... Sorry, I'll get back to the sub-quality in a minute. Warriors of the Wind is the localized title of the 1985 English dub, which changed several characters' names,
The shell of a giant gorgon,
removed 23.5 minutes, and chopped the sides of the movie, squishing it to fit TV screens. So it's clearly a hack, insulting joke of a dub that prevented us from getting English releases of Ghibli films for decades, right?
he won't hurt me once he knows I'm a friend.
Is Nausicaa a boy? Or is it just the dub?
Friends?
No, it was pretty much only because Tokumo Shoten wanted more money than God. If you actually try watching the movie with the Warriors dub, I found it to be pretty funny.
Are we in heaven?
Another continuing Shabesism is, like, ultimate charitability, which is something I do like. It's something Krastorf taught us, but not all of us internalized, right? Which actually was kind of the point of the Watch Order Krastorf video. But in the encyclopedia video, Shabes would always bring up, like, oh, I don't like the dismissive attitude, the negative attitude. I don't like the general anime fan hatred of anime, etc., etc. So this is very
Unexpectedly charming.
One of these days, I'm going to learn to fly. It's a lot faster than you two.
And sometimes profound on accident.
It was cruel and savage, but sometimes people are that way.
But mostly funny.
You can't do that! You can't!
I'm not upset by its existence. It's not even included on any modern official release. And while it was an issue for the time when all you had was this VHS, now we have access to the original. Besides, it actually could have been a lot worse. You can tell watching Warriors they did at least consult a proper translation. It's the same movie, all things considered. Perhaps fans assume it's worse than it is because of the outrageous cover art. If this is what they did to the cover, who—
Looks like those old Star Wars ones, Miller. Jesus Christ, just watch the movie, Kyle. Kill yourself, Miller. Kill yourself.
knows how bad they butchered the movie? But that's ridiculous. What, do you think they managed to add Asbel riding a Pegasus somewhere? Yupa riding the God Warrior like he's Paul Atreides? There's so many ways a dub can go wrong that a couple weird line deliveries,
There, in the toxic jungle.
or different names,
My name is Prince Milo. My father was the king.
or peeking the mic
Oh
a
my
couple
god, a Zelda reference. Miller's loving it.
times, are still not good, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to how off the rails and
Wait, I wasn't
peeking the
listening the
mic,
last
or
15
different names,
My name is Prince
By
Milo.
15
My
minutes,
father
I mean 15 seconds.
was the king.
or peeking the mic a couple times, are still not good, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to how off the rails and unprofessional dubs can really get. What actually disqualifies the Warriors dub from any serious comparison is simply that it removes 23 minutes from the movie. Very obviously the slower scenes like Nausicaa's secret room and her dream sequence. There's no given reason why these cuts were made besides to quicken the pacing. We don't even know who the editor was, just the company, Manson International. When judging these choices, it should be about what was cut out, the impact of those choices, and provided we have access to the original. Judge which is better or worse. It's fun to compare. A majority of Warriors cuts are important dialogue scenes that establish or enhance the themes of the movie, so the result is less of a tighter package and more of a shallow action.
God, how long do you think this fucking shit took to make? Ugh. I can't even figure out how to do a mask in this piece of shit app. I'm not doing this.
Movie. It's not bad simply because they made cuts. It's bad because the cuts themselves are bad. And if you're wondering how they did this legally without Miyazaki's approval, the rights to the movie were sold in advance by Tokuma Shoten to get some extra cash. So it appears that no cuts wasn't stipulated in the contract. Miyazaki was kept in the dark about this overseas distribution until it was already released. It's shitty, but Manson weren't in the wrong. If you want to learn more about Warriors from someone that doesn't relentlessly shit on it, please check out Space Hunter M's video. I can't thank Pauline enough here. She was very generous with materials and information. She was with me
Never
for every
heard of that
stream I
channel
did for this project, and she even created her own Nausicaa subs, which are the best way to watch this movie in its original language. Ah, speaking of subs. If you want to properly analyze the dialogue, you should obtain multiple translations, and definitely the Japanese script itself, to really understand what they're saying. Being fluent doesn't guarantee you pick up the precise wording. And right here, I'm already giving the Japanese audio more than enough rope it needs to hang itself. If you want to enjoy this movie with a friend or at the theater, you're not gonna have the damn Japanese script in front of you. I could judge this movie's script off just the boring official subs, and would be almost completely justified doing that, because this is how 90% of English-speaking audiences who've only watched this movie in Japanese have experienced this movie. But I won't do that, because I can tell, listening to the dialogue, that the script is much better than what these subs let on. That's why I mostly prefer subs to dubs. And it's one major reason why I prefer anime over manga. When I read a manga, or play a JRPG,
Now, we can't be agreeing with that second one around here, chat. Don't be getting any ideas.
or if I read light novels, I'm at the mercy of that translation. I'm fine
True, we
consulting
don't like light novels here. Get a leader, reality.
all these sacred texts for
Jockey Bacon, my goodness.
this movie because I already love Nausicaa and have watched it for years. But for a first watch, or even a second or third or fourth, I'm not about to dilute my enjoyment by constantly checking the raw Japanese scan and multiple translations to see if they really said poggers. Not out of scrutiny like I don't trust the translator, but because I love the Japanese language, and sometimes I'm curious to know if the character said suge or yabe. That's all. When I watch anime, even if the subs are boring or inaccurate or riddled with meme speak, at least I can still hear it in Japanese. Now, due to the differences in each language, a dub script of any language will never be identical to the Japanese, because the line has to be spoken and match the character's mouth. This difference is what qualifies the dub not as a translation, but as an adaptation, which is what makes them worth trying, just like anime adaptations. Adaptations have the chance to improve the material. Potentially. Of course, if it were that easy, dubs would always be better, but that's far from the case. It's still a very small chance that demands scrutiny to be proven.
It is interesting. Like, dubs should always be better, right? But they just usually aren't. Or you can, like, do the... you can do, like, the House of the Dragon Season 1 thing where you, like... because you're iterating on something, you get too in the weeds and too invested in a little aspect, and that then balloons into like destroying things. Like if you get so invested in something, you start writing a really good dialogue that basically means the same thing, but it's too wordy or it's like too good for than the like original scene intended it to be. It can then create a jarring effect between the image and the audio or something. But I think honestly the reason why usually subs are more popular, well, they definitely aren't. But in like this sort of community, our sort of community, is usually just because you're like, oh, I need to be as close as possible to the original. That's very easily a principle that doesn't hold up, because in a million ways you're probably not going to be. And it's just sort of the illogical feeling that you get that you are following that, and that's a principle that you should respect. And the feeling that that gives off is stronger than any sort of actual point.
However, subs are a translation. They should not try to change the material.
Sorry, Heath. I'll get back to reacting harder. Dubs consist of first-time voice actors way too often. Isn't the criticism opposite? Is that dubs that just have the same voice actors over and over again? These older ones can be interesting like that, where it's like, yeah, it's like somebody you've never heard before. What are you talking about? How are subs not the original? Well, no, I'm not saying that subs aren't the original. I'm saying that the person that reads subs aren't really going for originality. And if you actually take that principle to the extreme, obviously you would learn Japanese and stuff like that. And then even then, there's always going to be a difference. And even then, your eyes are usually glued to the bottom of the screen. And that changes things and creates an entirely different experience to the like original intended Japanese experience, etc., etc. I think even the normies would make that argument, and it's a pretty good argument. Chris, I think, would always say that, where he'd be like, well, obviously listening to a dub is going to be better than having your eyes glued to the bottom of the screen. And at least when I'm watching subs, I can't pay attention to a goddamn thing, so I have to pause it all the time to read the line and then let the thingy play. Which in some ways is like better, because then I can read the line, know what the line is, then look at the actual image for like the same, but then that also takes double the time and would ruin any intended pace, etc., etc. So it undermines a bunch of things.
They shouldn't add something the character didn't say, even if it would make the sentence flow better.
Hold on, I wasn't listening.
It's still a very small chance that demands scrutiny to be proven. However, subs are a translation. They should not try to change the material. They shouldn't add something the character didn't say, even if it would make the sentence flow better. A savvy audience can still hear when there's a discrepancy. The translation shouldn't add a please when you cannot hear the character saying please. I swear I am not this militant when passively...
There's also the funny experience you get when you're watching a sub of like, the subs don't match what they're saying in the exact moment, but you have to structure it for the sentence to make any sense, usually. Because you'll be like reading, like let's say it's a character speaking 2 lines, and you'll hear like the character say the character's name they're talking to when the first bit of the line is on screen, and then you'll only see the sub of them saying the character's name after that in the next like sub. But it's still the same line, so it's all out of order, and you sort of get that dissonance.
Experiencing this stuff. But for this specific project, I wanted to be strict about what the Japanese script does or doesn't say. If it was a better choice that a character said please in this moment, one of the...
There's a lot of reading. So that's the original Japanese here. We got kanji or whatever. And we got don't shoot, listen to me. Dub, don't shoot, listen to me, please. Oh, we're talking... Subs shouldn't change things, but dubs have liberty to change things.
These scripts said please, and the other did not.
Because it's an adaptation, not a translation. I'm back on board.
The subs can't add that please in because it's a translation.
Hold on, Miller's saying something that's probably annoying. No one has their eyes glued to the bottom of the screen, Lamau. Only kids who can't read. You definitely can.
But the dub can add a please if they think it'll improve the scene, because it's an adaptation. I accept the dub making those changes because I'm voluntarily choosing to watch the dub instead of the Japanese. Much like I choose to watch the anime instead of reading the manga. That's also why dub titles are out of the question. They simply won't...
I wasn't listening again.
Much like I choose to watch the anime instead of reading the manga. That's also why dub titles are out of the question.
Subtitles that are just the dub script, not translating what's actually being said. Oh, that's funny. I've seen people do the opposite, right? Where you have the dub. I think the normies do this too. Where they'll have the dub playing, but then they'll have the original subtitles at the bottom. Now, obviously, that's just to pacify their very annoying audience, who will complain when they don't do the sub, etc., etc. Like me, when they did that shitty new Evangelion dub, that I haven't listened to. But that's funny. I've never seen anybody or heard of anybody doing this, but I believe it.
They simply won't match what's being said in Japanese. I wouldn't want dub titles or even the exact Japanese script laid on top of the Cantonese dub, because I'd miss out on fun details like this.
小魔怪啊，好得意啊！
你估係屎忽補啲氣咩？小魔怪係你唔好撩佢啊！佢唔係人咁品㗎，係都叫咗你唔好撩佢啦！似你嘅肥啲肥嚟，又搲又咬，仲惡過我死鬼佬！好啊！
Just like Warriors, this Cantonese dub is a fun novelty today, but if it's all you had access to at the time, that would be pretty frustrating. It's not a question of dubs being accurate to the original.
Wait, so were those lines from the Cantonese dub?
This dub, as any other, is within its right to add detail like this, because it's an adaptation. If we didn't allow that freedom and treated them as translations, the dub will be subpar every time. So what's the point? Be willing to confront those changes instead of hand-waving them as changes. This line isn't bad just because they changed something. Here's why I think it's bad.
It is funny because this changes conversation is kind of, well, everything about anything art-related is stupid. But, like, everybody's of, like, their experiences not matching up, like with another person. Because the only reason you would care if there were changes would be like, oh, if you go to talk to somebody and they're like, wait, I don't remember that. And it's like, oh, you had different subtitles, so you've come away with different like conclusions or something, and that could lead to misunderstandings. And even if it's not an actual conversation with somebody, because most people, I assume, aren't going to talk to anybody ever about the things they consume. They're probably just going to like engage with like online conversation by watching a YouTube video about it or something. And they want to sort of be in the loop that way, or like in the conversation, as we say in the games industry. But it's interesting, and even that's like, why do we really care about that much? And it's all like arbitrary, brother.
Yuba mentions having a wife. In original conceit, he probably doesn't mention again. This comment turns the character into someone who likes to complain about his wife, which clashes with his depiction as a stoic wanderer and kind mentor, for the sake of a throwaway joke. And at least Warriors doesn't have pop culture jokes like referencing Spielberg movies, which yanks the audience out of the far future setting. Again, only for a one-off joke. This dub is trying to get a laugh out of the audience, to make the scene more entertaining. But its attempts here are both immersion-breaking, and they muddy an early impression of this character. Here you can see that just because the dub scripts are at liberty to go this far, it's not like that means it'll turn out well. And a bad dub is not the end of the world. But I want to contrast that with a major change in the Buena Vista dub. It's my favorite line of the movie. The context is the character Asbel eating some nuts that Nausicaa gave him. He winces and admits that they don't taste very good. The Japanese calls the taste fushigi, which could mean a number of things from wonderful to mysterious, but based on his expression, he probably means strange, and the dub calls them awful. Nausicaa explains they're nutritious in the sub, or supposed to be good for you in the dub. In reply, Asbel stuffs several in his mouth, and while chewing, makes a joke to lighten the mood and makes Nausicaa laugh. The taste is, however you want to translate tomokaku, but it's something like setting aside. Boots, a lot, I want to eat. So he's saying something like, apart from the taste, I want to eat a whole bootful. He's hungry, so he'll eat regardless of how they taste. Due to how his mouth is animated here, they don't have to match any lip flaps. So the dub very well could have gone for a one-for-one translation of this joke. But they didn't. There's not a single thing they're taking from the...
Wait, was that in my left ear? Am I supposed to have both headphones in? Or did the audio just get muted? Oh no, I guess we just took the audio out and we're reading. Is this a dub title? Why is everything that's good for you?
There's not a single thing they're taking from the original line. Instead, the line is a charming observation that not only acknowledges the previous line about them being good for you, and reinforces the line before it, but it also happens to sum up the entire theme of the movie in one sentence. Why does the jungle trying to purify the earth also have to be poisonous? Why is everything that's good for you taste so bad? It lands perfectly between Nausicaa's revelation about the origins and purpose of the Fukai and her explanation of it. Why does progress and change have to be so difficult and as hard to swallow as these nuts? Oh, and that's not even...
Cute joke. Cute line also. Fuck, the joke took away what I was going to say. Fuck!
So bad. It lands perfectly between Nausicaa's revelation about the origins and purpose of the Fukai and her explanation of it. Why does progress and change have to be so difficult and as hard to swallow as these nuts? Oh, and that's not even mentioned.
God damn it, I had something to say. I swear I did, but I'm not going to get it back. I never do. Except sometimes I do, and I'll scream if that happens. I know a bunch of sites don't make subs for English dubs, and all the captions are just subs of the Japanese script. That's funny. That would be even funnier if the normies were doing what I said they were doing unintentionally, because they were just on one of those sites. Fuck, there was... I'm never going to remember, chat.
Mentioning how the dub sounds like Asbel actually has food in his mouth.
Fuck it, I want to listen to it again. Because I'm annoyed.
There's not a single thing they're taking from the original.
Oh, I was just going to say that, it's funny how, like, you can say things that... There's like a million ways to phrase like one thing. Isn't language just so complicated, chat? You know, to say something tastes bad, but oh man, and you can say that like in a million different ways, and some are going to fit and some are going to be cringe and some are going to be right similar. Like there's a spectrum of them that sound the most similar and the least similar, but they all kind of get the same point across, etc.
Line. Instead, the line is a charming observation that not only acknowledges the
Writing a dub script would be hard, guys.
previous line about them being good for you and reinforces the line before it, but it also happens to sum up
I have a feeling this is going to be a dual stream reaction. I don't think we're going to get through the end of this, and I even put it on 1.5
the
speed.
entire theme of the movie in one sentence. Why does the jungle trying to purify the earth also have to be poisonous? Why is everything that's good for you taste so bad? It lands perfectly between Nausicaa's revelation about the origins and purpose of the Fukai and her explanation of it. Why does progress and change have to be so difficult and as hard to swallow as D's nuts? Oh, and that's not even mentioning how the dub sounds like Asbel actually has food in his mouth.
Why does everything that's good for you taste so bad?
The Japanese is not so convincing, but we'll cover performances later. The real difference maker between these two scripts isn't actually in the translation itself. It's in the method of how each script is crafted. One is made proactively, and the other is made retroactively. The Japanese script goes through
True,
several
I talked about this a little bit already. I'm such a genius,
evolutions while the movie
genius.
is being made. First as an initial script, which literally
An
dictates
iteration, I called it before. Remember, I accidentally muted.
The script goes through several evolutions while the movie is being made.
Why are we not
First as an
theater
initial
mode,
script,
chat?
which
What are we
literally
doing here?
dictates who talks in the story and how much, but then it might change and develop as it passes through the storyboard phase. Even the ending of Nausicaa was changed partway through. The voice acting for this movie was done after everything was as it passes through the storyboard phase.
You
Even
know
the
what
ending of
just
Nausicaa
happened? I saw this thumbnail and I thought originally of the Procrastinators episode where they talk about Nadia. I said Nadia again. Nausicaa, who cares? Hideaki Anno makes better stuff than this hack idiot Bucky anyway. But this is obviously the Steven video. You can tell because of his sourcing things.
was changed partway through.
I think I watched the Steve from Nausicaa video.
But then it might change and develop as it passes through the storyboard phase. Even the ending of Nausicaa was changed partway through. The voice acting for this movie was done after everything was animated, so the script might still have to be tweaked further to what the sound director and voice actors can accomplish. They have to be able to perform these lines in the allotted time the storyboard planned
This
for.
is
and
like
roughly
this is all obviously very true. And if you've ever like made a student project or anything or did anything in any sort of film class, you know that by the time you get to here, it is like completely different. Not literally. The lines might even be similar or just certain little things. Even when you're recording the script to a video, you'll like accidentally say the line in like the wrong order and be like, oh, obviously that sounds better. Because obviously when you're reading, you're kind of skimming it and because you're trying to remember what emotion you're supposed to have in the moment. And sometimes you'll be skimming it and like rearrange it accidentally and then you'll be like, oh, sounds much better. Even sometimes when you read it back, it's obviously you're like, no, that can't sound better, but then you hear it and you're like, oh, it does. And that's why it's fun sometimes to go back and like read the scripts of your favorite movies because like there's usually more intent in a script and it's like, oh, so is that what was intended? And then you sort of have a ponder and then you think about how that relates to the ambiguity in which you interpreted the scene with and you're like, oh, this is interesting.
How the mouth moves. For example, from the Nausicaa storyboard, you can see this line originally mentions her robe, but due to how the shot was animated, there wasn't enough time to perform it that way, so the line was likely changed right there in the sound booth. Contrast this to the English dub, which only has the final script as well as those initial Japanese performances to reference to. While this new script doesn't have any sway over what happens visually, as the Japanese script did, instead, they get the benefit of hindsight. This new script is not being made as the movie is being made, so they can take in the scope of the whole movie to potentially enhance emotion and characterization. This is what I love about anime adaptations. Take in the scope.
There's also, now this, I don't know if we'll talk about this, because this is a double-edged sword, because it often feels like overindulgent sometimes. Like, even when we think of, like, the Erwin speech in Attack on Titan or whatever, where it's like, there's obviously a reputation going in of, like, this has to be the most epic speech ever. So to, like, lean into that and have that as the expectation rather than, like, no expectation in the original usually leads to, like, you can sort of go off the vibe of trying too hard. And he's about to, Shaves is about to liken this to anime, which obviously continues down his line of thinking of liking the dub and then liking anime generally. It's something I usually always get frustrated with in anime of like, oh, you know, this big moment's going to happen at the end, but if we put this little thing before it, it'll make it even better, and like we can build it up even more, and if we put this thing in a few episodes previously to tease that thing, it's like a whole like the little changes end up changing the whole thing in the end, and especially like anime a lot will do like manga winks to be like, oh, this thing's going to happen later, and we kind of just did a positioning thing where it made you think about it for a second and smirk a little bit, didn't you? But even then, that, like, reaction is something you wouldn't have gotten. Again, it's just like a different experience. But you're like, no, don't. Everybody should have the exact same experience as me.
Of the whole movie to potentially enhance emotion and characterization. This is what I love about anime adaptations of manga. They have the chance to take what was made and make it even better. Not just as a carbon copy. And dubs are the same way. If a dub doesn't improve the material, that's still great.
Because a lot of people do want a lot of anime to be like carbon copies. Just because then it would be like closer to their experience and be like, well, if you're gonna watch this shitty anime version, at least it's gonna be as near as similar. But obviously it's never going to be.
As an accessibility feature, but otherwise it's a missed opportunity, much like a mediocre anime adaptation.
Because I can hear that the Shaves argument would be like, well, don't you want like it's like your favorite thing again? It's like more content. It's like, that's good. But there is just that dog inside of you that says, no, I don't want any more. It's perfect the way it is. Fuck off, loser. Don't touch my shit. It's interesting.
No harm, no foul.
Also, I like these repeating frames and stuff. You know, fuck getting footage for your videos. It's annoying anyway.
Disappointing, but no real loss. You can just switch the audio tracks if you don't like it. But there's 3 aspects about Nausicaa, but otherwise it's a missed opportunity, much like a mediocre anime adaptation. No harm, no foul.
I'm not. I need to go back further.
The same way. If a dub doesn't improve the material, that's still great as an accessibility feature, but otherwise it's a missed opportunity, much like a mediocre anime adaptation. No harm, no foul. Disappointing, but no real loss. You can just switch the audio tracks if you don't like it. But there's 3 aspects about Nausicaa in particular that help this dub script succeed. First, Nausicaa is an action movie. If you isolate just the parts with dialogue, the movie is only about 45 minutes, just over 2 TV episodes long. That's less material to mess up than a 26-episode mystery series based on a light novel, where it's almost entirely talking. But more than just an action movie, Nausicaa is a post-apocalyptic story set in the far future, which means there's almost no overt Japanese culture that makes it complicated to adapt. The most honorifics you get are Hime, Denka, Sama, and San, most of which are very straightforward. There's no reference humor to Japanese
cute, probably
TV personalities, hardly any distinct dialects, almost no Japanese customs. What you get instead is a lot of unique terminology. Om, Fukai, Toramekia, Kyoshinhei, Chikonomi, some of which demands translation if it's recognizable to a native speaker, but that's still a heck of a lot easier than deciding which way to translate itadakimasu. The Nausicaa dub, as well as the official subs, often flatten these special terms into something that trades accuracy for clarity. Toxic Jungle is not as accurate a translation for Fukai as Sea of Decay, but it's far easier to understand in the moment when the Fukai is visibly more of a jungle than a sea, and there isn't so much decay going on as there are things growing and toxic. At least that's my argument in favor for that specific choice. On the other hand, instead of Giant Warrior, I think God Warrior would have been a better choice for Kyoshinhei, because Kyoshin implies the warrior is more of a deity and not simply that it's giant. And the dub sometimes lost the point when specific bug names like Ushiabu, or vehicles like Corvette, or Nausicaa's Mev, or Muve in the original German, were simplified to generic terms like insect, ship, glider, diluting the flavor of the story. And the last one has less to do with the content itself, but more so how this movie was made on a technical level. It's a whole separate factor that determines a dub's quality. This is a catch-all for what I think is the most invisible aspect of voice acting, the way the voice matches to the visual. There's overall things like the volume and mix with the music and effects, but also audio
cute
effects that can immerse an audience further into the film.
Lord Yupa! Yupa-sama! Lord Yupa! Yupa-sama!
Nausicaa, あんまり遠くへ行くなよ。Nausicaa!
I'm reading, Chad. I'm reading, okay? See my eyes glued to the bottom of the screen, Miller? Listen how his voice is an echo in the dub versus just...
Don't wander off too far.
Even with the masks the characters wear, the dub distorts the voice to make it sound like it's actually coming from that ventilation grill.
It is, this is another interesting, like, mini sort of argument that people have in things, is like detail versus... What it is, it's immersion versus practicality, where it's like, oh, maybe the echo doesn't sound as good as if you don't have an echo, but it does sound more realistic and could be more unique. And but also a lot of, and this just goes for a lot of praise generally for anything when you're praising something. A lot of it is just observation. So what people like about having the echo in there is like, oh, I noticed that it had an echo, and that's like a great attention to detail, and that's like +1 in my category movie or something. But anyway, the dub line did sound cool there, the echo one though.
Put it down, Kurotoa.
Listen, you don't understand the jungle.
And speaking of those masks, they lend themselves to one of this movie's dirty little secrets. I counted, and nearly half of the dialogue in Nausicaa show no lip flaps. Either the whole line or parts of the line come from someplace other than a moving mouth. It's a staple trick of animation not just to save on frames, but to allow the voice actors of any language to perform with just a little more freedom, whether that's framing from the back of the head, or covered by their facial hair or mask, or even just characters being far off in the distance or off screen. Heck, you could even add some echo to the voice and make it sound like the voice is in their head. However, this flexibility from lip sync and dubbing is very easily and often abused. You can see it in the Cantonese Nausicaa dub. These guys just won't shut up!
呢班友為要對付毒氣，其實想佔領全世界，國際聯盟冇俾你咁做嘅。我夠知道冇桃花啦，噏下得唔得啦？我哋冇幾耐就會到風之谷啦，又可以見翻班老朋友。
This might be a General Miyazaki thing, but I noticed there's no internal dialogue in this movie. You don't hear any characters' thoughts. Despite hiding the mouths for nearly half the movie, all of the lines are still spoken out loud, even when the character isn't talking to anyone but themselves. So the Buena Vista dub dutifully follows suit and doesn't use internal dialogue as an excuse to add more lines. But you know who does?
The endless ironies of life. I tried to say.
Wait, I wasn't listening to the
even when the character isn't talking to anyone but themselves. So the Buena Vista dub dutifully follows suit and doesn't use internal dialogue as an excuse to add more lines. But you know who does?
The endless ironies of life. I tried to save Milo's sister, and then he tries to shoot me down.
Not all internal dialogue additions are bad. Warriors just gives an example of when they're bad.
Just above us is a world of death and destruction. Yet here, just a breath away.
I am all for sculpting dialogue to make what's going on clearer for the audience.
It does feel much more Western with the internal monologue, which is funny because that's usually something we would like make fun of anime for because of like Death Note. But like this, maybe it's just the voice. It sounds like Land Before Time, like the dinosaurs walking through the, or Littlefoot walking through some of the environments when he's alone in that first movie. It reminds me of that very much. It could just be like the voice actress, or it could be like the tone of the recording equipment or something.
Yet here, just a breath away.
I am all for sculpting dialogue to make what's going on clearer for the audience to follow. That shouldn't mean recapping the story thus far.
Yet in the end, I saved his life, and he saved mine.
This added dialogue is tedious and pandering. It's like this was added because they thought the visuals weren't interesting on their own. The scene becomes about what Nausicaa is thinking, instead of what she's seeing.
Is it possible there is no death?
Ah! What are you talking about? What do you mean? What is she? Bro, what's nothing? Something I noticed
think
in this
this
movie.
is to talk generally about YouTube video stuff right now. Because Shaves was doing this in the encyclopedia video too, where we would cut away to the stream. I think it is good. I think the first person I ever saw do things like that was Angry Joe. When he used to review games, he would always cut to like him playing the game on stream or maybe he was just recording his sessions, and later he ended up streaming because he's been making videos for a long time. Who else does it? Somebody else does it, and for whatever reason, Donkey's in my head, but sometimes he'll just upload like gameplay footage, and I think that's what I'm thinking about. No, sometimes I think Donkey sometimes does fake versions of this, usually for jokes, which is fine. I don't care that it's fake. That's not like an insult. It's a good technique of like selling a moment, or like the script might not sell it that much, but showing like a genuine, in quotation marks, like first reaction to it, really like it's like a double down on the point. It's almost like a a second opinion, even though it's the same guy. It's a cute little narrative device. Miller's linking a goddamn YouTube video. Let me see what this is before I close it. And because I've given up on finishing this stream. It's how Miyazaki teaches Inuyasha to say arigato.
Arigato.
脱力してる。
Arigato. Arigato.
Is this from the Anno documentary I still haven't watched?
Arigato. 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 Arigato.
今のありがとう。よかったね。なんかありそうですよ。
いけました？
いけるかどうかわかんないけど。
Not a filthy foreigner, chat.
ありがとう。ありがとう。
The silly Japanese, don't we? Where the fuck is the goddamn video? Hold on, what else? No, that's all in the chat, I'm caught up.
Movie at least, is how rarely the voices would carry across different shots. Almost all dialogue neatly starts and finishes within their shot, which makes sense, right? That's how it must have been planned in the storyboard. You write down the part of the line that's going to be said during that shot. Even if it's a huge monologue, you break that down into smaller pieces and plan out what's being shown at what point during that speech. Bleeding those lines over is a lot more complicated because you have to coordinate that with everybody in the process, from the animators through the sound department.
The dub, you don't have to, chat.
This is where the dub script takes advantage of the sound engineering. In film, it doesn't feel out of place for a character to talk across different shots.
When I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert.
I didn't want to overload this video with examples, but here's two. In this scene, Nausicaa is being pushed back, and then she says her whole line over the course of the next shot. And then in the last shot, her foot hits the acid. The dub, however, starts the line a little before this shot happens.
No, you can't go in this lake!
And then the line continues through the next shot and ends right as her foot hits the acid. That's because the dub line is longer, not only saying the water is damedatara, or bad, as the Japanese script says, but specifically filled with acid, which it is. They're at Acid Lake, the Japanese script mentioned that earlier, but not during this moment. Notice the subs are trying to add that detail back in to make it better, saying it's poison or it'll burn your wounds. The dub has the freedom to make the line longer, because you never see Nausicaa's mouth. And to me, that timing of acid and hitting the acid is a much more visceral choice.
This water is...
Another YouTube thing. It's interesting when you're trying to explain very, very small details like this. Because I think about this all the time, especially when you're thinking about doing like a 20-hour Berserk review or something, or whenever you have like these fantasies about doing things like that in very specific details, like full analysis. And you like notice something clever in like the paneling. And I don't think I've ever even, well, I've definitely tried, but I don't think it's ever made a video where I've done some sort of analysis like that. Even like the miscellaneous insert shot video was like way too broad, and it's like talking about one shot specifically. It's not really talking about an intercutting of shots. I mean, Shapes just did it. It was pretty easy. It's just interesting. It's something I think about a lot. And I see some YouTubers do. There's even like there's also like the super eye patch wolf examples of talking about paneling or whatever, or eye movement and stuff that it's like kind of famously clowned on now. I guess I can never really figure out a context in which to put it in. The only context it really can exist is if the thesis of the video is I will analyze Berserk 1,000,000%. And we'll go through every little thingy, which is obviously impossible, and that video would literally be like you could write like 20 minutes on like one page or something, and you'd have to do that for every page. No, it's interesting. Obviously, it fits here because we're talking about like examples of ways dubs can do things particularly. But like, I guess I tried to do that in I think that first Evangelion episode video where I try to like make the point that Misato and Ritsuko handle all the exposition in that episode. Actually, I think this might be the second episode. I don't remember. But like Misato gives all the emotional exposition, whereas Ritsuko gives all the scientific exposition, and that's like a little thing you can notice, but that's a much broader thing. Anyway, making YouTube videos is difficult. Sometimes you got to think of things through and think about where they fit and stuff, and it's annoying. And I'm gonna throw this fucking Berserk video out the goddamn window because this dumb Griffith idiot is too complicated to summarize. Anyway. Put him in his place. I'm guessing it's the wind rises behind the scenes. What the fuck is Miller talking about? Put him in his place. Are we talking about Shapes? Don't worry, I will. I'm guessing it's the wind rises behind the scene. Oh, the Anno thing. Oh, we're talking about the Anno thing entirely. We're talking about putting Anno in his place. I see.
Bad! It's filled with acid!
Here's a more peculiar example. In this scene, Asbel and Nausicaa each have a line during this shot, and then in the next shot, Nausicaa would continue talking. Notice how this line is broken up between each shot. However, this is not what happens in the movie. Instead, the first shot holds for longer, and Nausicaa has a lot more lip flaps than necessary to just say Kumoyo. This puts the sound department in a pinch, and they have to squeeze more of the line into the first shot. This results in Nausicaa's voice starting before her mouth even starts moving.
I guess this is another thing that I was trying to get at just now, is that there's a million small little details that will always go underappreciated, almost always, and even like things in my videos where I'm very much and don't really care about presentation or anything, but there will always be little things like a little bit of music cue sync up, or like how one line leads to another, and like, oh, I just cut out like 3 milliseconds in Audacity because it sounds a little bit better. And it's like this in a higher level production like this would be crazy, where like the sound guy probably realized this was a problem, realized he had no other output to handle it himself, then had to come up with this idea, then had to trial it, then had to figure it, and I bet by the end it sounds really good. And it's like, well, except for Shaves, nobody ever noticed that ever. And most of the, like, in, like, making shit like this, most of the creative, like, expertise goes into people not noticing things, and, like, people will only notice if it's bad, but making it not bad is, like, 90% of the work, whereas making it a little bit more good, and actually good to be recognized, would be, like, 10% of the work. Anyway.
And even then, despite almost
we're nearly at halfway. Oh my god, we can totally do this in 2 streams.
rushing the line, it can't quite fit within this shot, so it bleeds just a little into the next shot. That shouldn't be a problem by any means. We can't see whether Nausicaa's mouth is moving or not. But what makes this line read so strange is that this following shot is over 2 seconds of near silence before the clouds billow up. I don't know why the sound department chose her rush the line and have a bad lip sync in order to avoid this line bleeding into the next shot, even though it does anyway. But the dub handles it by adding an oh no. And so they start the line when Nausicaa actually opens her mouth, doesn't rush the line, and finishes before the next big noise happens.
Oh no, they're trying to pin us against the clouds so they can board our ship.
Even warriors knew better to do this.
What are they doing?
Those clouds, they want us to go into the clouds again.
But I'm not quite done with this subject of lip sync. That previous
Is this
example where
just a
Nausicaa talks
general
before her
anime
mouth...
thing, maybe? I don't know.
They want us to go into the clouds again.
But I'm not quite done with this subject of lip sync. That previous example where Nausicaa talks before her mouth moves, that doesn't happen too often. What normally happens is the characters start speaking after their mouths move. For various reasons, lip sync is not nearly as much of a concern in Japan as it is in North America, and this can often be to a dub's detriment. I've come to call it the four wheels problem.
Four wheels are much more dangerous because two ropes are used to support the four wheels. If the ropes start swinging when the car's halfway across, the wheels will slip from under one of the ropes and there'll be no way to hang on to the other, and Twinkle will fall to the bottom.
Sometimes a line is scripted a strange way, or awkwardly stretched or squashed, just so the audio and visuals match. And Nausicaa's dub does run into this a couple times.
Tell me, what is gonna happen?
No, I've chosen the bloody path.
Silence, I say it.
The performance, or script, or both, are weaker. That's why it helps that almost half the lines don't rely on these lip flaps. But remember, the Japanese voice actors had to perform to already finished animation too. They just have the advantage because the animators set them up for success by animating the lip flaps to the Japanese script. Not just the mouth, but the whole body moves and reacts precisely to when the Japanese performer will say certain words or lines. So even though lip sync is not as big a concern in Japan, it still enhances the movie when it's synced well. And Nausicaa's Japanese audio just isn't.
I went through another situation there, chat, where I forgot I had something to say. It was genius, and I've forgotten it again. It's annoying me. And part of me is tempted to go back again, but I don't. And, you know, something about Nausicaa and lip flaps, and let's just move on. Forget it. We're forgetting it, chat. We're gonna forget it.
Enhances the movie when it's synced well.
Wait, it had something to do with little details and things being wrong. Oh, it kind of reminds me of like Red Letter Media would always do this, where they would, because they have some sort of expertise in movie making, they little things being off like this, which like normal people wouldn't notice. But once you do notice them, you sort of can't unnotice them. And it's never actually a big deal because most of the time, like, you could have something pretty bigly wrong and like general audiences probably wouldn't notice them. But it's funny that so much of internet critique culture is like focusing in on those very small little details that we have been curated to care about because a specific YouTuber in 2008 decided to care about this in a video, or was like so autistic in their analysis that they bridged down into something hyper literal even though it clearly didn't mean that. And that's why we hate like the power of friendship now, because somebody took it literally even though the whole point is that it's like not literally manifested in narratives, etc., etc. It's just sort of this knock-on effect. We live in a very specific context, Chad. Madam President tells us this all the time. You know, it's only this way because of incidental human nonsense. It's not this way because it's true, and it's not this way because, you know, it should be. You gotta think about that sometimes.
And Nausicaa's Japanese audio just isn't. I checked Miyazaki's last movie. It's good. I checked his next movie.
Okay.
It's good. This is not the voice
That was Laputa, by the way.
actor's fault. It's a sound direction problem. In several cases, the line could have fit perfectly fine if it was just moved over a few frames earlier. But so often, the mouths would open and close 3 or 4 times before the voice would start. If you're watching the movie casually, and especially if you watch a lot of anime, this is
Oh my god, just stealing my talking points.
really not a big deal. But in the context of this granular comparison, it did have an effect. One side is trying very hard to match the lip flaps and making mostly good choices, performing and landing.
This is interesting because again, it is flipping the general sub talking points back on them of like, well, they don't even care. They don't even pay attention to the lips. And oh, actually, it's the other side that didn't, and the dub actually is more so, and it doesn't fit, etc., etc. But flipping it.
Those pockets. The other side has a culture that typically cares less and has a courtside advantage with the animators. Yet still they let things slide.
What have you done to our city? It's completely...
Everybody get up now! Things may seem bad to you now, princess. But once we have the warrior...
When you put them back to back, it makes it seem way worse, huh?
Try to pull a stunt like that?
What do you think you're doing? Go!
Before I finally get to the performances, I wanted to take the chance to talk about Walla.
Walla Walla, where's Walla Walla? What's Walla Walla? Walla Walla?
Walla is the
Walla. That's when you're swearing to God.
crowd sounds that aren't specific lines. Nausicaa has a lot of Walla, and I will admit this was a flaw of the project. About 23 lines of Walla were counted towards the total number of lines, when Walla probably should have been judged as a separate category. But the differences are still worth discussing. First is how much Walla the dub adds that isn't in the original.
Usually this is like a big sub strength, because when they're making the silly noises in Japanese, you could be like, oh, it's silly Japanese. But then when they make it in English, you're like, this is annoying. Why are they making mouth noises all the time? Nobody talks like this. Anime's bad. Anime's for kids. Anime's for autistic people. We hate anime.
These are still worth discussing. First is how much Walla the dub adds that isn't in the original.
Well, I guess this isn't like mouth noise.
Sometimes adding distinct lines.
Kill yourself, antivirus. This is like just like chatter.
To say,
and like
giving
cheering.
them
Or maybe it's both, and we'll get to some of those other examples in a second.
dimension and character. They also add the Tolmekian soldiers grunting or shouting orders instead of being voiceless.
They're after father!
Performance does still play a role here.
That's kind
A
of
lot
a
of
big
Walla
thing.
still went in favor of the Japanese audio simply for their stronger shouting, believable crying, and fuller cheering. At least Buena Vista bothered doing their own Walla, unlike Warriors of the Wind, which literally just left the Japanese Walla in. In Nausicaa's case, the Walla was about 50-50, so it didn't help or hinder either side.
Now we need a full analysis of this type of thing, but with Pokemon in Pokemon, you know. Pikachu, apparently that's the Japanese lady, but I don't think the rest of them are, because they say different names.
With all that being said, let's get to what you've all been waiting for. I should preface by saying how I quantified all of this. If I could argue the dub was better, it earned that line. But if it was either worse, or I couldn't argue it was better, then the Japanese earned that line.
Oh my god, we're slanting it in favor of the sub just to appease them, and the dub still won. This is crazy.
This video to be about discussing these ideas of judging a dub more broadly. Here we can finally itemize and go character by character. But keep in mind, their performances were not the only factor in these results. It's in addition to everything we just talked about. The titular character has the most lines, which isn't always the case, but I'm very happy it is here because she is the whole reason I love this movie. Sumi Shimamoto is a legend. She was Clarice in Miyazaki's last movie, and even played a sort of Nausicaa prototype in one of his Lupin episodes. And I love her in Maison Ikoku. She's truly one of the best. So for anyone able to not just go toe-to-toe with her, but in my opinion be better than Sumi, is what makes Alison Lohman's performance so unbelievable and peerless to me. I would probably credit Alison as the reason I love the character Nausicaa, and by extension this film, so much. She not only channels the kindness, the strength, the youth, and the wisdom of this character on par with Sumi. Alison's voice sounds more alto to Sumi's soprano, so it sounds perfectly tomboyish.
It's been over a year now.
Hey, I don't know anything about Sopranos and stuff. I know about the Sopranos television show, you know. But, you know, that's like vocal something, chat, and A will be something, and S is...
Great to see you.
You know, like do, re, mi, so, follow something.
Sumi's soprano, so it sounds perfectly tomboyish.
It's been over a year now. It's great to see you.
Able to sound both sweet and tough.
You'll take us there and you'll set us down in front of the herd.
Where she commonly
No, I didn't like that first line at all. The second line was good, though, for the dub actress.
exceeded Sumi
The
is
first one was a little stilted in ways that dubs usually are. They're usually annoying.
in two ways that aren't immediately obvious. Nausicaa often has observations about the jungle, which aren't simple
But, chat, it's out of context.
info dumps about the world, but demonstrate
It's 1.5 times speed. Everybody calm down.
Nausicaa's constant drive to understand it. Sumi performs these lines with almost a clinical tone of voice, speaking more so to the audience as a dispenser of information as if she already knows all this. Allison instead lowers her voice and performs a bit more like a professor giving a lecture, which is similar to Sumi, but it's injected with far more curiosity, as if she's discovering these things with us.
The air beneath the clouds must be charged with poisonous gas. The Mushigo palms are sending out their afternoon spores. What's making them stampede like that?
It's like you can hear the gears turning in Nausicaa's head, which fits.
I guess this is an interesting analysis because, like, it depends if in Japanese vocal idiosyncrasies are the same in English, right? But even then, that would be only if you're trying to, like, weigh objective quality and trying to be objective in any sense. But if what's a more interesting and probably a more, not confronting, but more direct conversation would be which version is better for the English-speaking audience. In that case, you probably would judge the Japanese in the through the same like style and what the interpretation it gives off to an English-speaking audience. That's actually interesting. I never thought about that. I don't think that's expressly what we're doing here, but if Shaves brings that up in about 2 minutes, I'm going to accuse him of stealing my talking points again.
It's the character and contributes to this payoff at the midpoint of the film, where she finally figures out the purpose of the jungle.
It's okay, though. I'm just happy.
The other way Allison regularly
That was a cute line. I like that.
succeeded is not with her words, but with her voice. Everything like laughing, crying, screaming, grunting, all the noises that aren't dialogue. I found that typically, Allison was a lot more
These repeating frames are good.
expressive with these sounds than Sumi. This is another thing dubs can go a little overboard with. But it's not so much that Allison avoids being cringe about them.
Nausicaa, not a boy, by the way. Just that first one had us thinking it.
It's Sumi barely leaving an impression. I don't know if that was the direction or her own choice, but Sumi performs far more reservedly with her grunts and effort noises, like barely audible. On 2 occasions, this created a jarring contrast where she had this blood-curdling yell, but would be almost silent otherwise. It doesn't wholly detract from the tension of this scene, but Allison manages to blend her screams and grunts into one seamless performance.
I kind of liked that first one. Let's see.
Not just when Nausicaa opens her mouth. Where it does detract is far later in the movie.
I don't know. For whatever reason, the first one feels right. Like, oh, focus when you hit. Because, yeah, I guess it's kind of exaggerating the hit rather than the block. Again, it's just like 2 different, like, kind of ideas or philosophies about how to portray that encounter.
Both Sumi and Allison give pretty powerful screams here.
Honestly, I expected this, because I didn't mind watching this because I don't really have any interest in watching Nausicaa at the moment. I have interest in watching in the general sense of it. Like, yeah, I should probably have watched that or should watch it in the future. But then it's like, oh, am I doing all the Miyazaki things? Do I have to go back and watch Lupin? Like, oh my god, I already watched those first 2. Do I really want to watch Grave of the Fireflies again? Definitely not. How do I get through that? That's not even really a Miyazaki movie. And then you keep going down that thought and you're just like, oh, I'll just watch something else. And then I expected to also watch this video and it's probably going to recap the story and stuff. And I'll be like, oh, you can like tick it off your mental checklist of like, oh, I know enough about this. I'll watch something else. Honestly, at this point, I want to watch this movie, which is interesting. Videos usually don't, even if that's their goal, usually don't get me to want to watch the movie, but I don't know, maybe showing little scenes like this is the way to do it. The funny thing is, I would probably still watch the sub at this point. That's funny. With the bad subtitles.
Listen to the noises that come after. Allison is exerting with her voice because Nausicaa is still trying to push the ohm away from the acid. Sumi is almost making these noises as well, but it's far quieter like the rest of her effort noises. But based on the visuals, the audience might miss this detail that Nausicaa isn't just standing there. She's exerting force trying to save the ohm. Sumi's crying is similarly held back. Again,
you know how I am with these crying scenes. I don't want to hear it.
It's the sound engineering, making Allison sound muffled like she's actually burrowed in Yupa's chest. Again, these are not the only singular reasons Allison earned more lines than Sumi. Each line has a justification and argument behind them, which you can agree or disagree. But I thought these 2 aspects were interesting to discuss as broader topics of voice acting to consider. Mito.
This is, I was jerking off my own most recent Last of Us video with this, where, like, this... Like, I feel like somebody needs to make a channel, and this needs to be their channel's conceit, is comparing the dub and the sub like this. The problem is it would probably, after, like, the first 7 videos, become very formulaic and boring. As in, for the creator, and therefore the videos would end up being bad. But goddamn, I want to know about the pre-release history of every video game and showing each trailers and when they were coming up like I did. And I want to see this for like Black Lagoon next. Please, somebody do it. Because I'm sure if you sat down to do it, you would notice a bunch of things. It's just like, you can never really find a place to put that in any video that's not this literal video. And obviously I don't want Shades to continue doing this type of video forever because he's so good at all those other ones. And he needs to diversify his content and do all the different things. I want AMVs, I want Lupin videos, and I want this one, and what inspired fucking Gurren Lagann, and etc. But man, somebody, Heath, you watch anime, watch them both, and make these videos, become a millionaire. Hurry up. What are we doing? It was around here when the video quality fell off because I could hardly tell if he was saying about the Japanese... It was around here where this video slightly fell off, Heath is giving an opinion here, because I could hardly tell if what he was saying about the Japanese tones sounded like. I think I get what Heath is saying, like, if it actually sounds like that or something. Most people don't give a shit about anime dubs for anything. Well, we'll see, Miller. When Heath gets rich, you'll be crying, because you didn't give dubs the credit. But also, if we think about Western anime consumption, it has to be like digital video game consumption, where you would think that, like, in our sphere, like, obviously everybody plays video games physically, bro, and obviously everyone watches a sub, but it's got to be like 95% of people watch dubs. Like, that has to be true. Like, I know my brother, he watches way more anime than me at this point. He's just constantly watching shit on Netflix. Like, he's never watching a sub, mostly because he can't fucking read. But that's only half a joke, chat. Also, look at this silhouette over here. What the fuck? Somebody's eyes coming in. But that just has to be the case, I think. So, and in that case, I think those videos would be pretty popular.
Mito is a supporting role.
Plus, you've got inherent comments of people disagreeing with you and fighting and stuff. It's a genius idea.
Present throughout the film, unlike several of the more main characters, which only appear in discrete chunks of the movie. Ichiro Nagai and
I could do it for like one thing. What if we divvy this up? Everybody has to volunteer to do one video like this about their favorite thing. I already did my Last of Us video, so you got to do it about whatever you like. I guess I'll do the Black Lagoon one. No, because there's no way I'm gonna like that one. I want to do like Steins Gate or something that's like interesting.
and Edward James Olmos were almost dead even on their performance, sounding probably the most alike to each other than every other pairing.
All I do is worry when she's running around out there.
The difference with Mito lied more in his characterization. Nausicaa is the hero, and contrasting this young woman to a set of older men is a good way to demonstrate her capability and power. Nausicaa takes command as Mito clumsily follows. It's a useful cliche that doesn't actually need to be in this movie. The audience spends the first several minutes with Nausicaa being a strong character by herself, and then saving her mentor working independently. The first time we see Mito, he's assisting Nausicaa. Mito is never shown to be arrogant or act like he knows better than her. All he does is worry about Nausicaa because he cares about her. He is competent and...
Can you hear the rain, chat? Because I'm not in the garage and it's raining now. And it was windy before. I love storms. They're so cool. But don't worry, the stream's nearly over. Plus, I still think I've got that issue where my microphone is cutting out every once in a while. Though, because I'm not entirely in the garage, I am closer to the modem, so maybe that's not happening because I'm speculating that that's happening because of my poor internet connection, but it also could be because things are lagging. But the stream hasn't seemed to have been lagging very much, mostly because I've been on one video and not opening up a bunch of windows and shit. But I don't know. Anyway, cool ASMR on the background if you can hear the raining. Where are we up to? That's definitely wrong. Look at how shit Blindwave anime views are. Well, that could be because they're late also, but also dub. But also, that's also internet creation. People watching reactions to things have to be the minutia of people. Like, I don't think my brother is ever watching a reaction video. Though maybe, I don't know. Talking about the general population, then saying, look at Blindwave stats. What a Miller comment. No one's waiting weeks to watch new MHA. Well, most people who watch that probably aren't watching it right as it comes out, right? And also, I used to do that for My Hero Academia, and I was like already in the community. So if you don't even have all of them, what the hell are you doing? The type of people watching anime reactions and... Oh my god, Heath, you're just so smart. You're just a little Kyle Entertainment trooper. And the person following seasonal anime aren't either, who is then reaction channels watch the most normie anime. Someone who turns on Netflix and scrolls past the anime category. True. It's like when you always find out that, like, Seinfeld or whatever is the most watched thing on Netflix or whatever the fuck, and you're like, who is watching this? But it's just everybody, because they just... Most of the time, people aren't actually watching the television shows they watch. They just put them on in the background. We're in such a specific space of people who are, like, have to actually watch a thing. Because, like... we have this sort of thing for it, and we're, like, trying to be fake connoisseurs and shit like that. Whereas, like, most people just put it on the background, like, and then just go on their phone and watch TikToks, and they just want noise in the background. Or they just have it on while they're doing dinner, or they just do whatever. Most people aren't attentive viewers, I don't think. And also, like, things like Family Guy, it has to be 90% of people are fucking on. Like, nobody's watching Family Guy, right? They just watch the compilations on YouTube. But that's me having a Miller moment right now. People probably are actually just watching Family Guy. And that's the second battery warning. So we've stopped on the great analysis of Mito here, who apparently is this old man. We will finish. I could finish this off stream, but I think I'll finish this on stream. I like the video so far. I don't know if it's creeping up. This year we still have not had a video of the year contender, and I don't know if we're getting there with this video. I don't know when we will get there. It's definitely great so far. Like, it's not getting a good. Though, out of all the Shapes videos today I watched, one of them's closer to being video of the year contender, and I don't think it's this one. It's probably the AMV one, just because that's epic. You know, AMVs are the best. Oh, I was almost going to add it to the playlist. We can't do that before we finish. We got to get our fucking thing up. My God, do I have to piss too, chat? Oh, am I going to be pissing in the rain? We love that. That's a song, I think. Made so much Zelda progress. I have not. I do think about playing Zelda a lot. But then I started Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters Coliseum Libra mod again. Why did I do that? Why? It's just going to distract me from making videos and playing proper video games. Ugh. Anyway. That's it, chat. We're ending the goddamn stream. Maybe we'll be back tomorrow. Probably. I also have tomorrow off. But also, I gotta finish this fucking Berserk video. God damn it. But anyway. Flipping you off. See you next time.